Hello and welcome. Human tales of survival in Iraq are often lost behind the daily news of the latest car bombings and troop redeployments. But one Iraqi-American playwright is determined to tell those stories to Western audiences. She believes that portraying the harrowing existence of the Iraqi people, particularly the women, is the key to opening a greater dialogue between East and West. Here's an excerpt from her play, 9 Parts of Desire.
You know, my house was hit from Bush's war. I wasn't there, alhamdulillah, but we lost everything. My paintings for the new exhibition, my family's things, everything. That's why I'm living here, in my sister's house. It was 8 houses from here. This neighborhood they bombed. Mansour, can you believe it? So how smart is this bomb if it bomb a painter, eh? I mean, maybe they think I'm dangerous. Maybe I am. I am attached like I will die if I leave.
The award-winning performance has travelled from Britain to the US, where it's received widespread acclaim. On this show, we talk with Heather Raffo, the actor and playwright behind 9 Parts of Desire, who's currently performing in an off-Broadway production about the crisis in Darfur. And don't forget, we take your calls on the show, and the numbers are at the bottom of your screen. Well, Heather Raffo joins us now from New York, so welcome to the show, Heather.
Hello, thank you.
I have to start by asking you, examining the title of your play, because my wife is also reading a book called 9 Parts of Desire, but It's a different book, it's not the same. Now, I know this is an expression, 9 Parts of Desire is an expression that's said to have come from the Shia Imam Ali, who said that God created 10 parts, sexual desire in 10 parts, and gave 9 parts to women and 1 part to man. But I wonder what made you choose it as a title for your play.
Yeah, and the quote goes on to say 9 parts of shyness to women and 1 part of shyness to men. Yeah, no, I first came across the title obviously from Geraldine Brooks' book, 9 Parts of Desire. Right. And I found it I found it humorous, to be honest, that quote. It sort of lived by me as I was writing. Where it lives in this play is that we have 9 female characters, and each of them are fully representative of a desire for many things. Liberation primarily, but in all forms of what liberation means, from the inside, from the outside, politically, as a culture, as a nation. Right. And so each of these characters embody sort of a completely different set of circumstances and values. And so that title really spoke to me as a sort of mosaic of the kind of women that I was going to be portraying.
Now I wonder, how have you brought those 9 characters to life? How did you do your research to bring them to the stage?
It's a lot. It took a very long time. I think it took an open heart primarily. I mean, I was last in Iraq in 1993 visiting my family, and I gathered from them and from all the people that I was able to meet on that journey and experiences I had a lot of first-hand stories of the first Gulf War and the first 3 years of the sanctions. Then I went away to grad school and sort of left any thought of trying to take those stories and put them into theater. But I revisited that between the years of '98 and 2000. And at that point, I just went in hot pursuit of every Iraqi I could get my hands on, both in America, in London, through family in the Middle East. And I started to culminate their stories. And I think that this play is, in part, very specific stories from women I met and composites of things I had grown up with over a lifetime of being half Iraqi and half American. And so that was the nature of these stories. And I think to really answer your question, I would have to say I had to share as much of myself as I was asking any Iraqi woman to share with me, because they're warm and loving people, but they open up and trust you once you've sort of laid yourself on the line. Well, I think that.
Yeah, I was going to say, Heather, let's look at one of the other, because we saw one performance at the open there as we introduced you, but let's look at another one of your performances here as an Iraqi-American woman viewing the death toll there. And, let's listen to this first before I ask you about it.
The war, it's all so heartbreaking, don't you think? I don't even know, like hundreds of thousands, how many Iraqis? And this woman, she actually turned to me and said that. She said, the war, it's all so heartbreaking. She was getting a pedicure. I was getting a pedicure. I can't even walk down the street. I want New York to stop. Why don't we count the number of Iraqi dead? Why?
Now there you're actually an Iraqi woman playing an American Iraqi woman, like yourself actually. And I'm wondering, again, you said it was a composite. How much of it was drawn on you yourself and the way you feel about things that are going on right now?
Yeah, the American character is heavily drawn on myself and a few other Iraqi Americans I know. That happened to be of particular experience that I had being in New York in the middle of this second war and trying to distract oneself by going to the gym. There's lines about that, and getting pedicures and having people in elevators and in all walks of life either be cheering on the war or saying this is so heartbreaking, and not to look at me you wouldn't know that I was from that part of the world. So I think that it would particularly make me angry to have to deal with others, emotions about it.
What did you want to, Heather, what did you want to say about Iraqi women in general through these performances?
So many things. I think, this play celebrates their rich history. It celebrates their power, their voice. I think I wanted to not really say anything specific about them as a whole, but give them room to speak and have Americans be able to hear their many different points of view, their many contradictory points of view, without assuming that the situation in Iraq was sort of easy to pinpoint in any way.
Let's get another clip of here. You're actually an Iraqi character, so to speak, or someone there, where you talk about where the woman talks about the burden of her life.
You can read the story. Here it is. Read it all here on my soul. My feet hurt. I have holes in my shoes. I have holes now even in my feet. There are holes everywhere, even in this story. I don't want new shoes. I would rather swim than walk. Bring me back the water I was created in, the water in which I woke each morning and went to bed each night, the water in which I swam to school and milked the buffalo and listened to the loud voices of frogs. Bring me back the marshes, the fishes. Read man, read woman. I would rather swim than walk. And now the river has developed an appetite for us.
Now, Heather, you were saying that you wanted to say so many things about Iraqi women. How are you making sure that the Iraqi women you're portraying and the message you're getting across isn't portraying them as victims? It's a positive portrayal, not as victims, or do you feel they are to some degree victims?
No, I tend to tell people that I don't think there's one victim in this play. The women have suffered various things. One woman is outside the Amaria bomb shelter. She's lost her family there. Other women have had other brutal life experiences. But I think it's the inner spirit and inner nature that makes you a victim or not. And because all these women are fighting for something and really after something, and never playing the victim, but playing what they're after, what they want, how they hope their lives to be better and more, that I never found them victimized. I think maybe the American of all the characters might be the most self-conscious in that way, but the other characters certainly aren't.
Now, interesting, I know you see this, the 9 Parts of Desire, as a way to open up a sort of East-West dialogue, and it was interesting to note among the various accolades for the play that there was a quote, a comment from the Iraqi special representative, the ambassador to the United Nations in effect, who said, every American should see 9 Parts of Desire, and I'm guessing you would agree with that, but I was wondering why? Why do you think it's important for them, for Americans to see this?
Well, I think it's a window that they'll never have on television. It's a window that the news isn't able to give in a sort of documentary fashion. It's a piece of theater, so it takes us deeper emotionally. It takes us to a more mythic place, but also to almost a greater reality. These are stories from women that you could only maybe get as a trusted friend or at the hairdresser's if you're on the inside scoop, so to speak. And I think that when people see this, they have such an emotional journey. And the issue is made so complex but so full to them that Americans really feel for the first time that they've met an Iraqi. And not only met an Iraqi, but met an Iraqi who's willing to share their deepest stories with them. And I think that is a very moving experience. I mean, we have that in America in other fashions, but not with Iraqis.
I was wondering, how generally the feedback you got from Americans who watched your performance, what sort of feedback you had?
But primarily, as I just described, is a sense of incredible emotional feeling as if they've been opened up and they have met an Iraqi telling their story without any sort of slick interpretation of it. They feel very compassionate toward the Iraqi people, but they also feel that the issue at stake politically is bigger than they had maybe previously thought of.
What about Arabs and Iraqis in particular, if they've seen it?
Most Iraqis in particular will have a very emotional experience as well. I mean, most of them have come backstage and had a very hefty cry and hugged me a lot, and then they wanted to feed me. So that's the sort of the scope of the reaction. I think that one thing they feel that's unique about this show is that it's sort of not choosing sides. It's telling so many different stories so deeply that they can identify with many of them, even if they happen to disagree with one or the other. They recognize that as being their fellow countrymen. And at the end of the day, the common denominator is this very strong, embracing, and loving culture that is going through some of the worst moments in its history. So they have an immediate identity with that, and they feel thankful that I haven't simplified it.
Now, I know the play is being translated now into Greek, Portuguese, I think Turkish as well. It's actually going around the world with, obviously in different languages. What danger is there the subtlety of the message, what you've been trying to get across, might be lost as it goes into other languages?
Very dangerous. It's very dangerous indeed. Yeah, I mean it's a story that I want to have a world reach, so I'm happy about that. But I think that a lot of this play is an interpretation. And as you mentioned in the beginning, somebody could take this and say, oh, it's about 9 Iraqi women, therefore they're all victims, they're all behind the veil, they've all suffered, and just play the words as written, as if they're deeply suffering human beings that have no hope or have no light at the end of the tunnel. And something that I bring to it in my performance is this absolute resilience. So yeah, there's a huge danger if somebody's not playing the resilience, then the whole message of the play is lost if the translator forgets that element. It's something that I can only try to keep my hands on as much as possible, I guess.
Let's see a little bit more of your performance here, where we talk a clip where you have a woman talking about her relationship with the river, and it carries on from one of the other themes you had.
When the grandson of Genghis Khan burned all the books in Baghdad, the river ran black with ink. What color is this river now? It runs the color of old shoes, the color of distances, the color of souls torn and worn. This river is the color of worn souls.
Actually, Heather, we have a caller on the line from Saudi Arabia. Brian has a question for you, so let's get him straight on before we talk about that clip. But Brian, what would you like to ask?
Well, I just want to thank Heather for putting on the show, and that this show should be put up to the Bush administration.
Well, let me ask Heather, then, has there been any official interest in it from the government side here, Heather? Have you had any response from the US administration, which obviously is very sensitive to its portrayal of its role in Iraq?
It's very interesting. I mean, it was very important for me to take the show to Washington, D.C. And in fact, we had a great reception in Washington, D.C. We had lots of people from the Pentagon and the State Department coming. I think the unfortunate thing is the people that found their way there happened to be more sympathetic. They still came and felt that they were being shown sides of Iraq that they had been desperate to see, wanted to see. Karen Hughes was somebody I was trying very hard to get to the show. Seeing as how she's in the Middle East talking with different Middle Eastern women. I was hoping for Laura Bush or Bush themselves. Obviously they didn't end up coming. It's something that I do think this is a kind of show that shows so much of the personal side that it would get in under their radar in the best possible way and allow them to see these issues in a different light. But I can say that aside from those, the sort of people that are on our minds regularly, a lot of people did come and felt very moved and changed by the show, and it continues to reach people in the government.
I know you went to Damascus more recently to see family there who had left, and you couldn't go to Iraq, obviously because of the way the situation is there. Yeah. But you had gone as a 4-year-old, and you went back in 1993 in your 20s, and I wonder how much you feel that you're really really connected to the reality of living in Iraq. How have you been able to really sample that reality without being there?
Well, my reality as Heather isn't at all from being there. I mean, I'm an American with Iraqi heritage, and my life, and that I make very clear and show through the American character in my play, is the type of life where you can talk about getting a pedicure while you're talking about a war. It's that much of a horrible dichotomy. And that's something that I wanted to live out in this play, because you put that type of human being next to a character that's living fully in it, and we as Americans get to really see ourselves. So that's something that I bring to the service. Why these Iraqi characters have been able to come through me is just because I'm an artist. I mean, that's what we do. We so put ourselves in somebody else's shoe and capture their story so fully that the audience can have a journey as if I've been living somewhere or something. That's just nature of the work that we do. Just
a very quick thought, because we have only about 20-30 seconds left, Heather, and that's your performances in Darfur, the off-Broadway play.
Yes.
Same sort of theme, having the view through women's eyes?
No. Actually, the main Darfuri character is a woman. I play a New York Times journalist, but it's very much dealing with, America's place over there, the nature of genocide, and dealing with the men as well.
Well, Heather, we thank you very much for coming along. Right. Good luck with 9 Parts of Desire, particularly when it gets translated. Hope you manage to keep a hold on it as well.
Super. Yes,
thank you for being with us. Heather Raffo there. 9 Parts of Desire is her play. And thank you for being with us. On tomorrow's show, we host Congressman Dennis Kucinich, who's one of the long-shot candidates for the U.S. presidency and one who has had some controversial ideas, starting with his bid to impeach Vice President Dick Cheney. Don't forget, you can send us your questions for the Congressman or any thoughts you have about pressing issues around the world. You can send us emails to riz@aljazeera.net. And we'll see you next time. Street Talk's coming up next.